Is vaping as harmful as smoking?
Hello, I'm Professor Anne McNeill. I'm a Professor of Tobacco Addiction at King's College, London.
Hi, Anne. Thank you very much for joining us. We've got one of the most crucial questions, fundamental questions for you, and it's is vaping as harmful as smoking? Because more and more we know that people believe that it is.
Well, that's certainly not the case at all. We've been looking at the evidence now for nearly 10 years on e-cigarettes, both absolute risks and relative risks to cigarette smoking. And when we started doing it, we were basically looking at what was in the e-liquids compared with cigarettes, and then what was in the e-cigarette vapor or aerosol compared with cigarette smoke. And then in our most recent report last year, we were able to look in depth at biomarkers, different types of biomarkers. And collectively, the evidence is very clear that e-cigarettes are much less harmful than tobacco cigarettes. That doesn't mean they're risk-free. There is likely to be some risks from inhaling aerosol into the lungs on a regular and sustained basis over time. But a clear message should be given to smokers that e-cigarettes are substantially less harmful than tobacco cigarettes. I mean, some people say because we don't have the long-term health risks, we don't know. And I think that's inaccurate. As I've said, you can look at the products themselves, what's coming off the product, and then these biomarker studies, which are now increasing in number. And we use biomarkers in other areas of public health where we don't have the long-term evidence, because they're intermediate markers of the health impact of using different products. So it's a tried and tested method, and we used a list of biomarkers recommended by the WHO and by the Food and Drug Administration in the US. And as I say, that body of data signified that they were less harmful.
E-Valley isn't caused by e-cigarettes, but popcorn lung is, right?
No, that is a myth. So popcorn lung is a name given to a rare lung disease called bronchiolitis obliterans, which is associated with a chemical called diacetyl. And it was called popcorn lung because it was thought that workers in popcorn factories were exposed to diacetyl and got this disease. Now, that actually is being contested as well in the literature. But the thing to note is that in studies which have compared cigarettes and e-cigarettes in relation to diacetyl, the levels of diacetyl were 10 times higher in tobacco cigarette smoke than in e-cigarette vapor. And no one has ever, as to my knowledge, found cases of popcorn lung with tobacco cigarette smokers. So it's very unlikely that it would be caused by vaping. And the other thing to say is that since the new British regulations came in a few years ago on e-cigarettes, diacetyl is prohibited. It's not allowed to be in e-liquids.
So what are the harms from vaping, Anne?
Well, there isn't really any consistent evidence to point to any particular harm. I mean, we know that some people report respiratory symptoms.
You mean like lung disease?
No, like shortness of breath or coughing, and that could just be an acute reaction to inhaling something into the lungs. I would say that if you're inhaling vapor into your lungs on a regular and sustained basis over many years, it is likely to cause some harms. So we don't say it's risk-free. What we say about e-cigarette vaping is that it's much less harmful than smoking.
How much less harmful is vaping than smoking? I mean, what's the scale of the difference?
Smoking is so uniquely dangerous. There are 75,000 people who die every year in the UK because of cigarette smoking. To say something is a small fraction of that hugely deadly product doesn't mean to say that this is a safe product to use. So, but the clear message for smokers is this is much, much less harmful.
Yeah, so if I've done my sums right, then that means one person in England dies from smoking every 8 minutes. And I think there's a hospital admission for smoking in England every minute.
That sounds about right, Martin. And what really worries me is that we are not hearing about these people who are ill and dying because of their smoking. Most of the news in the media is about the dangers of vaping. And so I'm really worried that people are have misperceptions about the relative risks of these products and that more people will smoke as a result of them. So I think it's really important for us to get smoking back into the media to ensure people are aware of just how deadly it is.
But the surveys show, and your survey shows, that year on year, people increasingly believe that smoking is as harmful as vaping. Maybe the next question is, so what? Why does it matter? If people think that vaping is really harmful and it scares them out of vaping, surely that's a good thing.
Well, smoking is so uniquely deadly that we have to help people who smoke to stop smoking as quickly as possible. There isn't a huge amount that we can do to help them at the moment. We've got nicotine replacement therapies. I hope that some of the other evidence-based treatments will be coming back online soon. But vaping has been shown to be an effective smoking cessation treatment or cessation aid. So if smokers switch to vaping, then they are going to reduce the harmfulness of their continued nicotine use. And we've seen that in studies where people who smoke switch to vaping. There is a reduction, a significant and substantial reduction in the toxins that they are exposed to. So it's really important that people who smoke are aware of the relative risks of these two products and have accurate perceptions of that.
Okay, Professor Anne McNeil, true or false? Vaping is as harmful as smoking.
False.
Oh, Anne, I owe you so much. You have been so generous with your time for my whole career in tobacco control, but thank you especially for the last few minutes.